Everybody, welcome to the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast. Hopefully everybody is having a good week. It's hump day. If you're listening to this on the day it's launched, it's hump day. Not sure why Wednesdays are called hump day when most of the people do it on the weekends. I've always kind of thought that. I understand like halfway through the work week, get over the hump, but my mind usually goes to a more adult place whenever someone says something to me. Whatever, right? So like today, I uh I had a guest lined up. He called me last minute. He said he's got a sick kid at home, so he had to go pick him up from school and do the whole daddy thing. No big deal. So guess what that means? That means that there is an opportunity here for me to share a story from my past. And for those of you guys who have been listening to the podcast for a while, I've had a weird past, right? Just like a lot of character building moments, I guess we could say here. And so, like there's a lot of stories in my life through, my wild party and drinking days, my days when I was living in the South, I went through 2 divorces as a kid. So there's opportunity to talk about things like that. My journey that I'm currently on like trying to renew my faith. So I have like this entire catalog of stories. Some are appropriate, most are not for, what we could talk about today. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to go one hunting related story and I'm going to go one non-hunting related story, maybe 2, because some of them kind of cross over or blur together. The non-hunting stories do. But, so I think that's what I'm going to do today is just give you guys a couple stories. And I'm trying to debate which one, which story to tell from my high school / college days. The one story I'm debating talking about makes me kind of sound like a huge douchebag, which admittedly I was back when I was 21, 22, 20 to 22 years old, still in college. Just self-proclaimed douche now. All right. Like I get it. If I was to go back in time and tell myself one thing, I would just say to myself, stop being a douchebag. And I think a lot of people would agree with that. So I don't know. Hell, let's do them all. I have about an hour here on this podcast. So, story number 1. No, I tell you what, let's do a big thank you to the partners of the Nine Finger Chronicles podcast. These are all hunting companies. And so I'm always like, when I go off on rants like this and have a non-deer hunting themed podcast, I always am thinking, am I giving them what they paid for? Like, am I supposed to be talking about hunting all the time? But most people, they must like me somehow, and they don't ask too many questions about it. So before we get into today's episode, let's just send a huge shout out to the brands that help support the Nine Finger Chronicles, whatever topic I'm talking about. First on the list is Wasp Archery. I've been working with Wasp for a very long time, and I would say 95% of all of my bow harvests, my archery deer harvest, mule deer harvest, have been with a Wasp broadhead on my arrow. Huge fan of the Wasp lineup. So go check out wasparchery.com, discount code NFC20 for 20% off. Next on the list is Vortex Optics. Turkey season is coming up. Last week, I launched an episode with Mark Boardman from Vortex about red dots. So go check that out. That's another piece of content about red dots and why, red dots may help you during turkey season for your turkey shotgun. Go check out vortexoptics.com. Next on the list is Code Blue Scents. They have a full lineup of real and synthetic deer urines. They have laundry detergents, body washes, field sprays. This week, we have state wrestling. Next week, I'm heading to do a little shed hunting with my oldest son and his friend, and we're going to do a little bit of a mini adventure. We're going to go stay at a really crappy motel in a small town, and then we're going to go. You know what? they did a remodeling project, so it's not fair to say it's crappy anymore. It's a good hotel. It's a really good hotel. It's in a small town. It's affordable. It's close to my farm. Anyway, and then we're going to be working on moving some tree stands, setting up mock scrapes for this upcoming season. Because of my knee surgery, I got to get this done now so that I don't have to do it with a bad knee this summer. So, all right. And that's codebluesense.com, discount code NFC20. Next on the list is Reveal Trail Cameras. They have their newer model is the Ultra. They've had a ton of updates to their platform and to the cameras themselves. Very, very good functionality. Very, very easy to use and set up and connect to your phones. And I would say that if it is the top, if not the best, cell camera on the market, just from the ease of use, scanning the QR code, all the functionality on the app. So go check out tacticam.com/cameras. Next on the list and last is my company, Full Sneak Gear. Just do me a favor, go buy a t-shirt. I believe they're 50% off. Buy one, get the other one 50% off. I can't remember what I did. I've done it so long ago, but they're hunting t-shirts, and I have a turkey t-shirt right now with turkey season coming in. Go check it out. All right. Story number one comes from high school, and I was pretty good in high school. I didn't party too much my freshman year or my sophomore year in high school. I can remember the first time I ever got a buzz was my sophomore year in high school. I went to a party with a couple buddies whose older brothers and sisters were at this bonfire, and it was a cabin that we used to party at all the time. And so I ended up going to this party in this particular place. First time I ever got buzzed was my sophomore year in high school. We were drinking Miller Red. That was the big thing for us. Maybe it was dirt cheap. I don't recall it necessarily being good. And when you're a sophomore in high school, I don't think you don't care, or even in high school in general, you don't care what the alcohol tastes like. At that point, I wasn't sitting there going, I'm going to pass on Miller Red because I'd rather drink some other Heineken or some shit like that, right? That didn't happen. It was whatever was available. And for some reason, MGD or Miller Red was what we were drinking at that time, along with the Southeast Iowa, quintessential Busch Light. Anyway, so we're at this party, and the first time I ever got buzzed, it was after a football game. Everybody went to this cabin. It was one of my first nights ever driving a car. And so we're sitting around the bonfire, and I'm just scanning. There's so many people there. I'm scanning through the light of the bonfire, and I'm looking around, and I just see my buddy's dad's face in the reflection of this. And he sees me seeing him, and my eyes got real big. He goes, "Johnson, you're coming with me." And he pulled like 5 or 6 of us out of this party, got into his car, and he took us back into town. And he's like, he was pissed. And so then he took us back into town. And then I had to come back the next morning to get my car, all that shit. So growing up in Iowa in the 90s, there's a lot of small town Iowa. There's a lot of country parties, bonfires, dead end roads, that type of stuff. Parents are out of town type of parties. I'm sure most of you guys are used to that, or, grew up that with yourself. But I took the summer after my senior year off, the summer after my sophomore year, me and my buddy, we took weightlifting really serious. We were working out every day, going to the gym every day. I had a sweet tan because at that time I was a lifeguard. Believe it or not, I was responsible for other people's lives. And then my junior year in football, I blew my knee out. So I was unable to finish my junior year in high school. And so I didn't have to wait around for all of the, I'd hop into a car full of girls, and then all my buddies who were in football would meet us at the after parties, wherever that was at, some Friday night or Saturday night. And my mom was really lenient with me as far as when I had to be home. My senior year, or my junior and senior year, like once football was over, I could stay out as late as I want, pretty much, as long as I was safe. But I, like, my junior year, I didn't push the limits too bad. But anyway, I don't know. Did any of your moms or dads used to do this? My mom made me check in with her no matter what time I got home. And sometimes that was like at 3 a.m. Sometimes it was at midnight. Whenever I rolled in, she's like, come into my room, give me a hug. And so my mom, number one, she grew up in a house where her dad, my grandpa, was ripping 3 packs of Salem cigarettes a day. He would smoke 3 packs of cigarettes today. So I look back at this and I laugh. This story, I laugh because my mom knew. My mom knows about, what smoking smells like. And so we weren't at a bonfire. We were in some dude's garage drinking and smoking. And I come in. It's probably December. It was cold outside. And maybe it was Christmas break or something. And I walk into the house. My mom is sleeping. I go into her room. I give her a hug. And I don't know, did any of your moms or dads used to do this? And just take a huge whiff of me. So they knew if I was drinking or smoking or whatever the case is. Not like it would really change the outcome of anything. But she's like, what's that smell? Like, where have you been tonight? And I go, at a bonfire. And this is when I knew, like, trying to trick my mom was no longer an option, because all parents have done what all kids have done at some point in their life. They're not idiots. And I just, for some reason, was like, God, my mom's never going to know. And I go, I was at a bonfire. She goes, oh, were you burning Marlboro Lights? I was just like, busted. And so at that, like, from there on out, I never lied to her again. I told her exactly what I did, because she knew. I used to, like, try to lie to her and be like, oh no, I'm at so-and-so's house, or I'm doing this and this. And she's just like, dude, I know exactly what you're doing. Don't be a dipshit. And that was like one of the last times I ever tried to pull anything on my mom. And from that point on, I told her exactly, yeah, we're going to go to a party out in the field, and I might stay, I might sleep in my truck. I might go to my buddy's house, sleep on his couch, whatever the case is. And this was before cell phones. So I know my mom was worried shitless about where I was at and what I was doing back in the day. And so that was the last time I tried to pull the old fast one on my mom, telling her I was at a bonfire instead of smoking cigarettes. So, and that happened like 100 times before that. And so she knew. And like, I wonder, like, I don't think I'm going to be the dad who will put up with that shit. Like, if my kid comes home and he's 14, 15 years old and somehow comes in and gives me a hug and I can smell cigarettes on him or booze on him, I'm going to tell him exactly what I think. I go, dude, you smell like cigarettes right now. What are you doing? My hope is, and I think that because I have been, this is like where there's the shift about don't be like me because I was a loser. I am very open to my daughter about that right now. I have a 13-year-old. And when I was 13 in 7th grade is the first time I ever had a sip of alcohol. It was a Bartles and James wine cooler that some girl brought to a birthday party that I was at. And I took a sip of it. And that was the first time I got another buddy who was there. He took a sip of it, and then he faked like he was drunk the whole time. He's like, whoa, dude, I'm so hammered right now. This is crazy. And he had like 1 ounce of Bartles and James wine cooler. It was the funniest thing. And if I still hung out with him today, I'd still make fun of him for it. Anyway, that was the first time I ever had alcohol. And now my kids, they're in so many more activities There's so much information out there now about drinking and alcohol and things like that. And I'm very vocal. I'm like, hey, I wasted 11 years of my life drinking. I don't think you should do that. Same with the boy's mom. She's on this no alcohol journey for me. And as long as they're in high school, man, I'm just going to be blunt with them. I'm like, you're wasting your life drinking or trying to party in high school. You should be doing other things like fishing or hiking or going on camping trips, which I don't know if a camping trip would be recommended because I went on some camping trips too that were wild when I was in high school and college. So maybe not those. Um, so that's the first story that popped into my head today, that I was, drinking a cup of coffee this morning, and I was just kind of staring out the window like an old creepy man usually does. And that, for some reason, that just popped into my head. The second one popped into my head was it's been windy here, and for some reason there's an empty 30 pack of Busch Light in my backyard. And I looked at that this morning as it was kind of blowing in the wind, and I started laughing out loud. And here's why. So when I went to college, my junior and senior year in college, I transferred from a smaller school into a bigger state-run school, the University of Northern Iowa in Cedar Falls. And dude, I turned 21, and it was just party time. Like, I didn't care about college. I didn't care about grades. I went to every class. In my entire college career, this is no joke, I was worthless, but I never skipped class. And I think that's the only, if I skipped class and did what I did, I would not have graduated. But at least I showed up to class and listened to what the teacher said, or what the professor said. If I didn't do that, dude, I wouldn't have a college degree. Anyway, so I had this buddy who there was a group of guys I played rugby with, and they lived in a house, what we used to call a frat row. So it was like two frat houses, our buddy's house, which is full of guys I played rugby with, and then another frat house. So it was like what we called frat row. And so we had a lot of fun during like rush weeks, where they would they took a bed sheet, and during rush week, and if you're unfamiliar with rush week in the fraternity system, it's where all these new people come in and they try to join a fraternity, and then the fraternity the fraternity picks and chooses. And so we made up our own frat, or they made up their own frat, called Don't Ram a Guy. And that was the name of their fraternity, called Don't Ram a Guy. And they took a bed sheet, and on this bed sheet they painted, "Pay for sex, not your friends. Rush, don't ram a guy." And during the rush week, we would sit out on their front steps, and as the people would walk in to rush for a fraternity, we would sit out front, and we would be like, "Don't go in there. Instead of joining a fraternity, why don't you come party with us instead? We promise we're not going to make you give another dude a hand job, or, we're not going to haze you. We're not going to make you do anything gay. We're not going to, make you pay any fees or anything like that. You just hang with us, and you're going to have a much better time." And we actually pulled some people, got their information, and we would just call them whenever we have a party. We'd just be like, "All right, let's do it. Let's have a party." And those guys, and then they were in our circle. It was hilarious. And then of course, the fraternities would get mad, and they're like, "This is something serious for us. How are we supposed to roofie girls if you are stopping it?" Right. And so I was just like, "God, we're sorry," but we didn't care anyway. So when the bars would get out, we would sit on the front step, and we would just watch all of the people flood out of the bars and walk. And it was like this big people watching thing. And there was a lot of intoxicated people. Guys would run their mouth, and, "What are you looking at?" And then there was a lot of almost fights that would break out. Almost fights. But one thing we started to notice was that if there was a can or if there was an empty box of beer or anything, basketball, like anything on the sidewalk, somebody would kick it. And no matter what it was, people, when they get drunk, they want to kick stuff. And so they were kicking all this, I guess you would just call it garbage, on this sidewalk. And one day, it was like standard procedure. After the bars got out, we'd walk up back to my buddy's house, and they're all sitting on the front step just laughing their asses off. And I'm like, what is going on here, guys? And so they had a couch on cinder blocks on their porch. And so I took a seat, and everybody else was kind of gathered around. And they had a 30-pack, empty 30-pack box there. And I'm watching this group of guys, another group of guys, obviously intoxicated, walking down the sidewalk. And some guy takes off like an NFL field goal kicker to kick this box. And he crushes it, and he starts to, he's just like, ah! And everybody on the porch just started laughing their asses off. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And they had noticed that everybody kicks things, so they put a broken cinder block in this empty 30-pack of Busch Light and set it in front of their house, and people would just come by and kick it thinking it was empty, and instead be kicking a broken cinder block. It was some of the most funny things I have ever seen in my life, and I regret it because it was not a nice thing to do. But I will say that watching someone kick something extremely hard, not knowing when they thought it was not hard, is one of the fun. It's like watching a fat person fall down. Dude, nothing is more hilarious than watching just a regular fat person fall down. Right? And I don't mean like a regular fat guy. Like I got a gut on me, right? I'm a little fat. But I'm talking like real fat people, like the fattest of fat people when they trip and fall. We've talked about this before, but that's the most hilarious thing. The second most hilarious thing is watching these people kick this cinder block, and just watching their reactions when they did it. Luckily, not that I know of, I don't think anybody got seriously hurt, but it was alcohol-induced fun. And at the expense of others. And I hate to say it, but to this day, every once in a while, do I regret that type of behavior? Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, right? Being on this journey of trying to be a better person now, and then looking back and still laughing about all the times where I did really douchebag things. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about that. And so that's just another example of how big of a douchebag I was 20 plus years ago. So there's that story. Got to take a sip of my coffee here. The next thing, this is a deer hunting story. Okay. 2013, I believe it was. And I know it was 2013 because my buddy Ryan came to hunt with me in 2014. And so I videoed for him. I was videoing him we were trying to kill this big buck on a property that I had access to. And the goal, the rule was, or the agreement was, not a rule. At the time I was filming for White Knuckle Productions, all of my hunts. And I said, dude, why don't you start putting in preference points for Iowa? As soon as you draw, you come be my camera guy for the rut. As soon as you draw, then you can hunt my farm, and I'll switch. I'll give up my season for you. And that was in 14. But in 13, he was my camera guy. And so there was, through trail camera pictures, through seeing him on the hoof, there was this buck that I named Megatron. And the first time we saw him was mid-October. He came in, and I was hunting a corner. Like there was imagine a fence line, two fence lines interchanging, and they make a T, right? Or a T post or whatever. Southeast of that intersection is a timber. Southwest is a marsh. Northwest is a cornfield. And to the east or northeast is a quadrant or whatever you want to say it is more timber that leads. It's like a hill that's timbered that leads to more ag. And so it is the morning of probably, maybe it was actually late October. It's a morning hunt. And we're kind of 20 yards inside the timber. There's a good trail where these deer run north south, and they kind of parallel this cornfield. And we're sitting about 50 yards off of this this four-wheeler track, and we're about 20, 30 yards from the cornfield. And here comes Megatron. All right. And I'm like, hey, big deer coming down the two-track. He turns around and starts to film it. And sure enough, it's like this mid 160 class, maybe low 170 class, pure 8-pointer. I mean, just imagine a 170-inch 8-pointer walking through the timber. It was one of the most glorious moments that I've ever seen in my life. I have a 154-inch 9-pointer downstairs, and that buck that's downstairs could easily fit inside the rack of this 8-pointer that I had deemed Megatron. And so Megatron comes down, he's doing this scent checking, he looks at some does, and he just kind of goes north. We were south of his position, and we had the wind, it was all good, he didn't bust us. And so I said to myself, that's the buck I want. That's kind of what I was doing back in the day, was kind of going after 2 or 3 deer that were of that caliber, maybe 150s or over. And back then I was passing deer I should have shot too. You guys have heard that story as well. Anyway, I start making plays on this buck. I start putting trail cameras in places where I didn't have them, trying to locate them. Long story short, I locate this buck. He has since moved into the bigger timber of the farm, and because I don't think I don't think the deer were ready, or the does were ready down in the bottoms. So he's now looking for other doe groups, that active type searching before the rut gets crazy, probably before the first does go in. Obviously my favorite time of year is to hunt when the bucks are ready to breed, but the does are not. And so deer are covering a lot of ground. They're looking for specific doe groups. And so I got a picture of this buck nocturnal in the big timber, like at 3 a.m. Usually that didn't mean anything, but now I knew where he was at. So we bounce into this pinch point that I had a trail camera in that I did not check. However, for previous year's history tells me this pinch point generates a lot of traffic through here. It's a cattle pasture. It's an outside corner of a cattle pasture that is in big timber. Cattle pastures to the southwest. Everything else is timber. And so I'm sitting just off that. And he comes through, and it's 80 degrees. It's November 4th or 5th. I was wearing a t-shirt. We did a run and gun in on this ridge. Sure enough, 4:30, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, he shows up out of some random thick area, and he just flanks our position. And long story short, the second encounter, he gets downwind of us. And so he gets downwind, and I had no Onyx running. He just barely got to it, and then his mood changed. And then at that point I knew, dude, it's over, right? I tried to grunt him in, and his head came up and he was looking for something. But it just didn't work, right? He went down the backside of the ridge, and if I would have been 10 yards further to the north in my tree on that ridge, I would have had a shot opportunity at him. It didn't work out. All right. I saw that buck another time at a long distance in that big chunk of timber that year, chasing a doe. And eventually, my buddy Ryan had to go back home. He had kids and he had a job, and so he couldn't just be my personal cameraman all season. And so in 2013, the rut kind of just like trickled away from me, and I didn't have it. I didn't have any opportunities. I didn't see that buck again. So it was late November, probably the week. It was probably the third week. Usually back then, I was taking vacation, the first 2 weeks of the year, and then I was done hunting for the year at that point, just because I had a real job back in the day. And so I'm uh, I'm like, I had a free weekend, and I'm like, okay, Friday night I show up, I check trail cameras 2 days in a row. Actually, 2 previous days in a row, I had a really good access route, and this buck walked in front of that 8-pointer, walked in front of this trail camera 8 days in a row. Or not, excuse me, not 8 days, 2 days in a row. And I checked it on that third day in the morning after a morning hunt. No, it was excuse me. I checked that camera. Sorry. I checked that river bottom camera. Usually what I do is I go in and I hunt it in so this camera is a river bottom, so I go in, I hunt near it. I went and checked it. The wind that I needed for that stand was not, so I hunted a different stand, and then at dark I went in, grabbed the camera. Then I found out that 2 days in a row at like 1:30 p.m. he had been daylighting 2 days in a row right in front of this camera. So I hunted that morning, and I needed to wait for the wind to change, and it was cold that morning. And so I walked back to the truck. I went back home, and I was like, it was a quick turnaround because he was coming. The wind was shifting, and I needed to be in this tree before the wind. Like, I couldn't do it before the wind shifted. I had to do it while the wind was shifting. So I was walking in with the wind to my back. So it was going to be an east wind, and I walk with the wind to my back, and then I get to the stand, and while I'm in the stand, my wind is blowing into this creek system and not into the bedding area south of the creek. And so I'm assuming that he was going to come back out, right? So I hunt that morning. I'm trying to get in a stand where I can see into there. I didn't see him. I saw a lot of does. I saw another young buck. And I get back down. I go back to the truck. I go home. I take like a coffee break. I take my morning poop, and I switch up from my cold weather morning stuff. I always dress lighter in the afternoons, and I creep in there, and I get to my stand, and I climb up, and there he is in the bedding area. He's with a doe, and I wasn't even completely set up yet, but he's in there. So I hang my bow up. This is a pre-hung set, so there's no running gun. It's been in the same tree for however many years now. It's like a perfect rut funnel. I've never shot an actual deer out of it, but there's been a lot of really good deer really close to that stand. And so there he is, one of the biggest the biggest 8-pointer I've ever seen in my life. My bow's hung up, my arrow's knocked. I see him in there, and they're not really coming towards me, but they're not going away from me. They're just kind of milling in there. And then he's on this doe, and he's just kind of like following her. He's eating a little bit. He would bed down every once in a while. She would bed down. Every time she stood up, he'd stand up. And this is happening at about 80 to 100 yards out here. But if I knew anything about this particular deer or this particular bedding area, there's a trail crossing at 22.5 yards. I range it every year, 22.5 yards. And these deer always cross right at 22.5 yards. They pop up, and then again, they're at like 25 yards, and they're kind of quartering away, heading to the ag field And so essentially I'm set up in this staging area. And I'm like, oh shit, there he is, right? He's doing his thing. This is probably 30 minutes of me watching him. And I go, because all my hunting pants are like pocketed cargo pants. And I put my hand down in there to grab my release, put it on. And so now I'm ready to go. Check the one pocket, not there. I'm like, oh shit. Check the other pocket, not there. I'm like, shoot, I must have put it in my backpack. Unzip the backpack, not there. Now my heart is beating 1,000 miles an hour. I have my number one buck at 80 yards. I don't know if he's going to come through or not. And I'm frantically looking in my hoodie pockets, all the pockets of all my coats, all my stuff. And I realized my release is in my cold weather pants at my mom's house in a tote. Luckily, that I don't know if like you guys have ever done that. And then you're starting to think, dude, I'm going to pull fingers and I'm going to have the same accuracy. And I draw back with my bad hand, my nub hand, and there would have been no way of doing that. So at that point, I was just like, dude, do not come by me. Like I wasn't trying. I was praying to not let this deer come by me because I would feel so embarrassed. And luckily, a doe got downwind of me at, oh shoot, like 30 minutes, 40 minutes after that. And didn't started stomping, didn't necessarily blow too hard, but was stomping, was making kind of like moving. They noticed her her body language changing. The doe that this buck was on worked away. And so he worked away. Then that doe worked away. And I just got out of the stand. And I probably, I don't like to joke about suicide, but when a once in a lifetime deer comes by your stand and you don't have what you need to kill him because you forgot about it, that would be a cool story. Those are some stories. How about this? If anybody is listening to this, do me a favor, reach out to me if that happened to you, right? I've been so tired sometimes where I've even forgot my bow walking to the stand, but I've never made it to my stand, right? I've always been like, why am I not carrying anything? Turn around, walk back to the truck. It's in the truck. I mean, I've had to go all the way back to the house a couple times because I forgot some certain, I've forgotten some things. But knock on wood, I have never been in a tree and a deer has come by within shooting range. That was the closest oh shit moment I ever had. And honestly, it's been why I always carry backups in my bag now, in my pack. So that made my butthole go whoop and made my heart beat 1,000. I was so angry at myself because at this point, I've been hunting for almost 10 years of just hardcore hunting, thinking that I'm the shit, connecting on some good deer. And then all of a sudden, boom, rookie mistake. And I wish I could say I've gotten better at it, but I still make those types of mistakes every single year, whether it's ranging wrong like I did this past year on that 150-10, whether it's forgetting something somewhere or not packing something, or maybe packing the wrong socks or the wrong boots or forgetting the boots or some crazy shit like that. Oh man, I still do it every year. And I guess that's what makes me me. Those were 3 stories today. Hopefully 40-minute episode there, give or take. Just wanted to put out some content, feel like telling a couple dumbass stories about all the times that I've been a dumbass. And that actually might be the title of this week's podcast is I'm a dumbass. But I just want to wish everybody a good day. Good vibes, everybody. I don't know. I don't know what to say other than practice shooting your equipment. Be very clear and concise with your gear. Make sure now's the perfect time to do that, is to check your gear. I have stacks and stacks of shit in my garage that I need to organize right now. After the hunting season this past year, I literally ended up throwing everything in a pile, and I haven't touched it yet. I haven't shot my bow yet. Again, I'm thinking about getting a new bow for this upcoming season. So if anybody has any really good success stories with the bows that they're shooting and you want to talk about it, dude, I'd love to talk about it on the Hunting Gear podcast. If you have a turkey story you want to share, hit me up. We'll talk about it on the How to Hunt Turkey podcast. Other than that, good vibes, everybody. Wear your safety harness, be good to each other, and we'll talk to you next week.